problem. I would like to introduce
Bigfoots Pad Paranormal Investigations Team.
Welcome to another edition of Bigfoots Pad Paranormal Radio. I'm Jeremy, and on the line with me is Brent and Tim. And our other co-host should be calling in here pretty soon. But how's everybody doing today?
Doing all right.
Brent is just fabulous today. Well, today's show is going to be about the Philadelphia experiment and the Montauk Project. And I guess we're going to start with a little bit of news for today. Which one should I choose? Oh, here's a good one. I know I usually talk about different sorts of companies bringing people into space, or like I think I had a question of Domino's Pizza in space like a couple months ago. This one involves bringing people into space again. It goes, Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen has formed a new company that aims to launch people into orbit by 2015 using the world's largest aircraft ever built and a rocket built by SpaceX, he announced in a press conference. Called Stratolaunch Systems, the company plans to launch people using a two-part system. First, a giant carrier jet with the world's largest wingspan of 116 meters will carry a rocket into space, or will carry a rocket and space capsule into space. Then the rocket will detach and ignite, carrying the capsule and its passengers into orbit. The enormous carrier aircraft will be built by Scaled Composites, the same company providing the vehicle to be used in Virgin Galactic's suborbital space tourism flights. So, that's out there. But personally, though, would you even fly on an experimental, privately owned craft like that into space?
Probably not, unless it's done a couple thousand flights without any issues. Then I probably might go on that.
Okay, so let's get this straight. They have a Domino's Pizza in space that they were talking about. They have a privately owned moon-based hotel they were going to build, and now they have tourism flights. So think about it. Even if you went to the moon, what are you going to do? Would you eat pizza and sit in your hotel?
Seriously.
Would you have an eating contest in space, Brent?
I would. How many moon burgers?
What do you think, Tim?
Yeah, like that's going to be instead of sitting here in a hotel all day and not trying to buy.
It's hard to kind of hear you, Tim.
I said, what else are you going to do all day besides sit in your hotel room?
I don't think they let you wander around the planet, though, just in case you got lost or something.
Yeah.
Or you fall through the ground because it's artificial. That one story.
Oh, yeah.
Here's a good one. NASA has lost or misplaced more than 500 of the moon rocks its Apollo astronauts collected and brought back to Earth, according to a new agency report. In an audit released Thursday, NASA's Office of Inspectors General states, NASA's Office of Inspector General, he stated that the agency lacks sufficient control over its loans of moon rocks to other astromaterials, which increase the risk of these unique resources may be lost. So they're misplacing these moon rocks that we basically can never get back unless you go back to the moon.
Yep.
My personal opinion, though, is how do you lose something so important like that?
I don't know.
That's weird.
It's like what, they don't write it down or something?
That's exactly what happened in that movie Apollo 13. Or Apollo 18. Well, in the movie, the rocks disappeared because they were actually aliens. So, like, that's why they're like, oh, yeah. It was pretty interesting.
Oh, Nick just called. Hey, Nick.
Yeah, I'm on.
Oh, we're talking about the moon rock story. I was saying, I know you had a good opinion on the moon rocks being lost, or you said they're being sold on the black market, you heard?
Oh, yeah. I was talking to you the other day about how the moon rocks, or several of the moon rocks that were brought back after, I think, Armstrong and all those astronauts went on the moon and whatnot. They brought them back to Earth, and they were given to various countries as tokens of friendship, and then somehow those rocks were sold out to the black market, and they've been circulated around on the black market for, I think, decades now, so no one really knows where they are. I think we have a couple of them, but all the ones we gave to other countries are floating around on the black market.
At first I thought you meant like you and Marie actually have a bunch in your house. I was going to say, how did you do that?
Yeah, we did that. We probably have the federal, the FBI or the CIA barging down the door and coming to take us away.
What did you think of that, Brandon? Didn't it sound like he meant like him and Marie have something?
Yeah, at first it sounded like that.
Nick,
we have a bunch of space rocks.
That's how I know.
That's how I know I bought them off the black market. No, yeah, I'd be in a federal prison right now if I did that.
Oh, here's a good one. Apples fall from the sky over Coventry. Stunned motorists were forced to brake sharply to avoid falling fruit, believed to be swept up by a vortex caused by freak weather conditions in a town called Coventry. An avalanche of more than 100 apples rained down over the road in Carrisley, Coventry, on Monday night. The street was littered with apples after they pelted car windshields and bonnets just after rush hour. The bizarre downpour may have been caused by the currents of air that lifted the fruit from a garden or orchard, releasing it all over the road. One driver said the apples fell out of the sky out of nowhere. They are small and green and hit the bonnet, the front of the car, hard. There were other cars at the road at this time too, and everyone had to stop their cars suddenly, and some cars had damage.
Apples.
So,
Right when like that to happen in Placerville, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That would be the safest.
Well, there's another interesting story about things coming out of the sky, actually. I was reading on the news today about somewhere in California, I think, there was a bunch of birds that apparently dive-bombed into a Walmart parking lot. They just swooped down and basically, went headfirst into the pavement for some reason. And a bunch of the animal activists and whatnot are helping them out and making sure that they get some medical treatment, at least the ones they found alive. And, these birds just were on their migratory pattern, and they were flying over this parking lot, and they said that they thought the parking lot was a lake. So they say they dive-bombed down to go into the water, but it wasn't water. So they weren't met with a splash when they went down.
Oh, no.
I mean, I think it's kind of interesting. In the past couple of years, there's been a lot of instances of just mass death of animals at like single events. Like I believe also in California that there was like thousands of dead fish just appeared out of nowhere and were floating on the top of the water, and boats couldn't even get through. There's so much dead fish. And then there was like birds falling out of the sky down in like Kentucky last year, and it's been kind of weird. And the science community offers their answers to things like, they thought the parking lot was water, which sounds a little awkward to me because I've never seen a bird dive bomb into water before. So it's kind of odd. I don't know. I just thought I'd throw that out there since we're talking about apples falling from the sky.
Well, they did say that, like, for instance, the Bermuda Triangle, they said that maybe it messes with the magnetics, like certain parts of the Earth mess with the magnetics in the birds' heads and make them do crazy things like that.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. The magnetic field guides the birds when they migrate. So if the magnetic field trips off, these birds probably don't know where the heck they're going. Like when a pilot loses control with his instruments on a plane, if the instruments tell you you're going up and you're in the clouds, you might be going down for all you know if the magnetic field messes it up.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know about magnetics in planes, don't you, Brent?
Not really much about magnetics, but I mean, like the plane's instrumentation and all that. They have a lot of magnetics and stuff going in and out of them and everything.
Like the guy with the U.S.S finger.
What's that?
Oh, that guy on our. We had a news story a couple months ago where a guy had a USB drive, like a thumb drive, as his finger.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember that.
He'd, like, take the end of his finger off and have a USB drive.
Wow, that's random.
Okay, Nick, well, something interesting that I hear that you might have had a ghost encounter yesterday, Nick.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was just sitting eating dinner, and I have a touch lamp that I have on my table. And the touch lamp started turning on and off by itself really rapidly, and nothing was touching it. And it was odd. I thought it might be something paranormal. It could be. I'm not sure beyond, a reasonable doubt or anything what it is. It could have been a paranormal thing because when I was in high school and I had paranormal phenomena going in my house indefinitely, the light would turn on by itself when I was sleeping, or I'd be sitting on the side of my bed and I would walk into the room, or I'd walk into the room and it would be dark, and even before I would go near the lamp would just turn on. Or if I was sitting on my bed and I was, not quite asleep, but not basically right after I would go to bed and I'd be trying to get to sleep, the light would just turn on by itself. Nothing would touch it. There was nobody in the room. So that, along with scratching noises, shadows appearing on the wall by themselves, and various other things, led me to the conclusion that something paranormal was going on. So I figured this might be a paranormal thing too. It may not be, because I shook the table on purpose to see if me, knocking into the table was turning it on. And when I knocked into the table last night on purpose, I just shook it back and forth a little bit. The bottom of the lamp rubbed against the top of the table, and that turned it on a couple times, so it could have been that this time. But in the past, it definitely was something more bizarre than that, because the lamp was sitting on a perfectly sturdy dresser when it would turn on by itself, so who knows what's going on.
You were saying that the light used to turn on and off by itself in your other house in Vegas, right? Yeah,
that's what I was just saying. Before, it would sit on a perfectly sturdy oak dresser, and it would turn on and off by itself with nothing, no physical explanation. that I can think of to suggest why it would turn on by itself. And that happened at the same time that other paranormal occurrences happened. So if you connect the dots, they were probably linked.
Do you have any questions, Brent? You or Tim?
No,
not really.
I'm all right.
Well, I've heard them explore before. Yeah.
Well, do you have do you think that your house old or something, or like do you think it could be haunted?
Oh, my apartment. The building's very old. The area I live in half of it's old, half of it's new, and the building I live in is quite old. So yeah, it could be haunted. I don't know what it was before. It was an apartment building. Like the team knows, there are apartment buildings out there that used to be sanitariums or hospitals. Actually, they're making there's a recipe for hauntings right down the street from my house, actually. There's an old hospital being converted into an apartment complex for senior citizens. So I'd like to hear some of the stories that will be coming out of that place. An old big giant hospital.
Exactly. Oh, girls, where's a girl? Wanna kiss a girl, sure do love girls, sure do love them.
Yeah, well, the St. Luke's Hospital down the street, it's a giant hospital, and they're making it into an apartment complex, and I'm like, wow. I don't know, to me, if there's an old building like that, either turn it into a historical landmark or tear it down and build something else, because there's just a lot of things that can be weird with things like that, and but we'll see what happens.
Well, I have my last news story before we get to the topic. My news story says something in Arvada produced a frequency signal strong enough to knock out the power in 40 houses in a tiny community. The problem started 2 days ago on the 7,000 block of Torrey Court. It encompasses a half-mile radius. It's really weird, says a resident named Gina who lives in the area. She did not want to provide her last name, but no one knows what it is what she says. Gina thought she was alone until she learned that other neighbors were dealing with the same problem. I think it's amazing, says a guy named Colin Cooper. And another neighbor says there was reports of UFOs flying low over the neighborhood soon before the blackout and power outage happened. So
that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I bet they could have done it because they say they do either just like they say their ships, like what do you call it, like the system they use it malfunctions, electronics and other things, so it's possible.
Well, I know Brent used to have I know you said something about this when Stanton Friedman was on, when you were talking about people getting abducted. You were saying that you think that it could mess with household appliances and things the same way.
What's that?
I said we were talking about with Stanton Friedman, with you, me, and Tim. One of the times that he was on, where he was saying that when UFOs fly low over the ground, that you and him were saying, when you asked him a question, you were saying that you think it could do the same thing like TVs and things, like how it does the cars when they try to abduct people.
I don't remember.
Brent does not remember.
Perfect sound effect.
But we have an hour and 10 minutes left in the show, and we're going to go on a quick commercial break before we get to our topic of today. And you are listening to Bigfoots Pad Paranormal Radio.
Clean pots and pans, just like a whiz.
Ajax cuts grease faster than any other leading cleanser.
You stop paying the elbow tax when you start cleaning with Ajax.
Ajax really polishes as it cleans.
So use Ajax, the foaming cleanser. Flush the dirt right down the drain.
My gosh, they're right. Foaming action Ajax makes even the dirtiest pan shine like new in a jiffy.
So use Ajax.
Brent uses Ajax.
Exactly. Actually, Ajax is pretty good.
We're back after a quick commercial break, and we're going to get started with today's topic. And I know for those of you who listen to our show on a regular basis, the Philadelphia experiment has been one of our most popular shows in history out of the 4 years we've been doing it. And today we're going to have an update, basically. Whoa. Is that you, Tim, or is that Nick?
I'm sticking my head out of a car going 100 miles an hour down the freeway. I'm just kidding. I'm on my way to work, so you might hear some cars in the background. I apologize.
Well, here's a little synopsis. The Philadelphia experiment is the name of an alleged naval military experiment said to have been carried out in the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, sometime around October 28, 1943. It's alleged that the U.S. Navy destroyer escort, U.S.S. Eldridge, was to be rendered invisible or close to enemy devices. But what's that, Tim? Yeah, I can't hear him. But
sorry. As I said, everything didn't go as planned, though, obviously.
Yeah, but well, you could figure this would be, for obvious reasons, this would be something that the military would want to be cloaked on radar.
Well, especially during World War II.
Yeah. But I'm going to go over a quick little history of the experiment, and then I broke it down so it's easier to understand. I wrote, the experiment was allegedly based on an aspect of the unified field theory, a term coined by Albert Einstein. The unified field theory aims to describe mathematically and physically the interrelated nature of the forces of basically talking about gravity and radiation. And it says, no single theory has successfully expressed these relationships in viable mathematical or physical terms like that one, it says. According to accounts, researchers thought that some version of the unified field theory would enable the Navy to use large electrical generators to bend light around an object so that it could become completely invisible to the naked eye and the radar. The Navy would have regarded this as being an obvious military value, but according to the account, it sponsored the experiment, it says. The Navy did. Another version of the story proposes that researchers were preparing magnetic and gravitational measurements of the seafloor to detect anomalies, supposedly based on Einstein's attempt to understand gravity. In this version, there were also related secret experiments in Nazi Germany or field anti-gravity. A lot to take in right there.
Yeah.
So, what do you guys think? You think that sounds like something that they would be trying to do?
I definitely believe so, because like you said, it's based on Einstein's theory. So Einstein is obviously one of the brightest guys. So they want to try to be one step ahead of everybody else. So I definitely think so.
Yeah. Well, they used Einstein to light up Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So I don't think they wouldn't mind trying to make a cloaking device out of it either, out of his theories.
Well, if you think about it, they were saying that one theory says that the Nazi Germany had something similar. They had some sort of a similar experiment that went on. I'm not really familiar with that experiment, but I think that is interesting, though, if you think about it. Do you think that maybe we could have been stealing the Nazis' ideas? Like maybe we found out about that somehow, or?
Well, that's everything we did after World War II when we gave all the Nazi scientists immunity and let them become U.S. citizens. But no, the Nazis were doing saucer experiments in the 30s and 40s, I believe. They found remnants of where the Nazis were actually doing flying saucer experiments, and I'm sure our spies picked up on what they were doing as well with Einstein's theories of what is it called again?
The unified field theory.
As far as unified field theory goes, I'm sure we picked up on what they were doing then and tried to use it ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Anything to add, Clint?
No, not really.
So be it, Jedi.
But, well, it says, in most accounts of the experiment, the destroyer U.S.S. Eldridge was fitted with the required equipment at the Philadelphia Naval Yard. Testing began in the summer of 1943, and it was supposedly successful to a limited degree. One test on July 22, 1943, resulted in the Eldridge being rendered almost completely invisible, but not quite, and witnesses reported seeing a greenish fog appearing in the place of the ship. Crew members supposedly complained of severe nausea afterwards also. It said that when the ship reappeared, some sailors were embedded in the metal structures of the ship, including one sailor who ended up on a deck level below where he began, and his hand embedded in the steel hull of the ship. At that point, it said that the experiment was altered at the request of the Navy, and the new objective being just to make it invisible to radar. That's the first attempt that they made. So, what do you guys think this greenish fog is? Like, where would it come from, and what do you guys think about that?
Well, it's probably like some sort of a side effect because caused by such a high EMF, not EMF, but such a high electrical presence and everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm thinking. Maybe it's some sort of maybe some sort of a side effect from from the experiment itself, maybe.
Yeah, that's probably the best explanation.
Well, Tim knows more about this than I do. Like, Tim, you were saying that how many people were welded into the ship? Like, a lot of people?
Oh, yeah, I think there was a whole crew of like 30. Yeah, and then they said, and then there's an actual report, too, that some of the people that were on the ship that didn't get infused in the walls and in the decks of the ship, that there was a bar in Philadelphia, and afterwards they went over there. They were told not to talk about it, but when they went there, supposedly some guy got in a fight with another guy and got pushed, and he actually went through a wall, I guess, never to be seen again. Yeah, I'm sure Brent remembers this. This is the conversation Brent and I had when we met back in high school.
I was going to say, I have a story out here I was going to bring up later. I have that story on here that I was going to bring up later. I was going to look for it. It says, let me see. Here it is. There's a guy named Carlos Alendi. He was on the ship, he witnessed the ship disappear from a nearby trader ship. But because he wrote a letter to a famous author, UFO author called Jessup is his last name, and it says, Carlos Alendi, says he said that he had witnessed the Eldridge appear and disappear while serving aboard the U.S.S. Andrew Furuseth, a nearby merchant ship. Alendi named other crew members with whom he served aboard the Andrew Furuseth, the crew that he was there, and claimed to know the fate of some of the crew members of the Eldridge after the experiment, including one man who he witnessed disappear during a chaotic fight in a bar. And it says, he claimed to have observed the experiment while on that trader ship. He provided no substantiation of his other claims linking the experiment to the unified field theory. So he doesn't think they were using Einstein's theory. He just thought that the Navy was just kind of experimenting with random stuff.
Yeah, like I started bringing this up too early, but I just thought that's like the main story, you know, like that's like the main story everybody knows.
I said, well, do you think that guy could be a fraud, or do you think he's probably telling the truth, or what?
I don't know. It could be telling the truth, because if everybody got infused in the walls of the ship, that sounds kind of far-fetched, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it probably most likely happened, because there's many reports and everything about it. And everybody has reports about this project, so.
Yeah.
Someone has really loud noise in the background.
Yeah, it's Nick. I put him on mute for a second. I'll put him back on in a minute. But what do you think of that, Brent? Do you think that it could be telling the truth about the guy falling through the wall, or do you think?
I don't know.
Because I think it could maybe it's another side effect again of the of such a high EMF reading, or like electrical reading of some sort.
Mhm.
Again, maybe it's a side effect affecting him. So.
Well, is there anything that you would think that would make him do that, Brent? Like, you think maybe there could be radiation that was stuck to him or stayed with him or something?
I don't know. I don't know how the experiment took place, but a way I could see him falling through the wall is that his body is probably vibrating at a higher or lower frequency, and he would just fall straight through the wall, as he's not vibrating at our frequency, so he could probably just be like, say, a little higher up on the scale.
Here's another. Sorry to interrupt you, Brent.
No, go ahead. It's not like it was important.
I'll say, where do you think he went though when he did disappear?
I don't know. Disneyland?
Monorail. But there was a second attempt, and it says, the conjurer then alleges that the experiment was not properly recalibrated, but in spite of this, the experiment was repeated on October 28th of 1943. This time, the Eldridge not only became invisible, but physically vanished from the area in a flash of blue light and teleported to Norfolk, Virginia, over 200 miles away. It's claimed that the Eldridge sat for some time in full view of men aboard the Andrew Furuseth, whereupon the Eldridge vanished in full view of the men aboard the trader ship. And it says, it reappeared in Philadelphia about 10 seconds later. So
how'd they know where he was going?
I don't know. But I know the guy who disappeared in the bar, I guess he was on the second attempt rather than the first attempt, from what it sounds like.
Huh.
But that time they said there was a blue fog instead of a green fog.
This sounds pretty similar, though.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking, they said they didn't recalibrate the experiment, but I wonder, how come there was blue fog instead of green fog, you would think? Because, I mean, one would think that the fog would have stayed the same, right? I mean, unless, who knows?
Yeah, it's a little strange.
Brent wishes he was on the ship.
Not really.
Brent wishes his hand was molded into the wall.
Oh, yeah.
I'd molecular scale.
Well, I seen a show a couple years back with Tim and Brent where they were saying that they actually had to have some men walk around with pistols and finish off for put some of the people out of their misery in the ship.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what was it, Tim? They said some guy with his whole entire body was, like, morphed into the walls or something?
Yeah, one guy had his torso, like, I guess he had, like, fallen somehow at a molecular level. His body, like, evidently was between two levels of the ship. And then there was a couple of people that had arms and legs fused in the walls, and then there was one guy who had I hate to laugh, but there's one guy who had his head morphed through a wall, like his head was on one side of the wall, and his neck was his neck was through the wall, and his body was on the other side of the wall.
So he was still alive, though?
No, I'm pretty sure he was dead.
Dang.
Yeah, kind of like a guillotine.
I thought he said like he wasn't dead. I thought his head was just like half and half or something.
I don't know. From what I understand and what I've read and everything and heard it throughout the years, his head was like on one side of the wall and his neck was like through the wall. And then his body was on
You tell him I'm coming! And hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Like that?
Yep.
Many versions of the tale include descriptions of serious side effects to the crew. Some crew members were said to have been physically fused to bulkheads, like we just mentioned, while others suffered from mental disorders, and still others supposedly simply vanished altogether. They don't know where they went. It's also claimed that the ship's crew may have been subjected to brainwashing in order to maintain the secrecy of the experiment. And some of the things I wrote down were, do you guys think that they would brainwash you in this situation?
I think so, because I think they realized they made a mistake putting people on the ship when it happened and everything. So they have to cover their butt and have to do that.
Yeah.
What you seen today was all an illusion. That guy was not. Those 30 men were not fused in the wall.
Well, it says that the Eldridge was also used in World War II. Also, just an interesting fact. But I wrote, why were they fused to parts of the ship anyways? Is what I wrote. There's a question. Was there like electromagnetics that badly, or do you think maybe when they disappeared and reappeared, maybe they were standing in one spot when they disappeared, and when they came back, they didn't appear in the same exact spot, maybe, is why that happened?
Well, that's one theory I've heard, too. Yeah, like you said, if an object is sitting in one place, and if supposedly, like they say it did, like they said the ship traveled, back to, was it Virginia?
Mm-hmm.
And then back again, maybe because the ship, when it came back, maybe it wasn't, like you said, not entirely in the same place as it was, and maybe the crew members, maybe they were where they were for the first time when it happened, or when before it was sitting, presently before the transported. Yeah, that could be.
Well, I was thinking maybe because they're on the ocean, and I don't know if they were docked or not, but maybe because the ocean is moving.
It could be, yeah.
And then we're getting a question on our Facebook. It's saying, where did the sailors go? Similar to our question earlier. Brent, did you want to answer again with your famous answer?
With what famous answer?
Your famous, that's going to go down in DFP history, your famous answer for where the sailors went?
I have no clue what you're talking about.
Oh, no, I said, where did the vanished sailors go? I said, your famous answer, Disneyland.
Oh, I couldn't hear what you were saying.
Oh. Here's something interesting. It says, the U.S. Navy maintains that no such experiment ever occurred. The details of the story contradict well-established facts about the Eldridge, as well as known laws of physics. And I wrote, they claim that the U.S.S. Eldridge wasn't in commission when this happened, so they're saying it's a total lie. But that hasn't stopped the government in the past from erasing people's medical history or educational records or things like that. So I don't know if that's a possibility, maybe, or what do you guys think?
I think so.
Yeah.
So you think it might be a cover-up, Brent?
Well, yeah. I mean, if it did happen, of course the government's going to try to do something about it, try to keep it under wraps.
Yeah. But here's some interesting facts I wrote. Anti-gravity is a proposed way that UFOs fly around in space in other areas. I wrote, was the government using the Philadelphia experiment as a precursor to UFO technology?
What, you mean like they were testing it before they actually used it?
Yeah, because it was saying that they used Einstein's gravitational theory to cloak the ships, and then it says that they're messing around with anti-gravity, and I was just saying maybe they were testing it out on the ships before they tested it out on the UFOs, or maybe they're trying to understand how to propel UFOs or something along those lines.
Yeah.
You know who knows this? Connie. She knows the answer to this.
The only answer she knows is when the chef comes in the morning.
She knows.
Yeah.
She knows what we weren't thinking too. Oh, here's something. That guy Allende that was saying the guy fell through the wall. I wrote, Jessup replied, the author guy. He replied to Allende on a postcard, asking for further evidence of the guy falling through the wall. And he wrote, the reply arrived months later with the correspondent identifying himself as Carl M. Allen. Allen said that he could not provide details that Jessup was asking for, but he implied that he might be able to recall some means by hypnosis. Suspecting that the guy was a fraud, Jessup discontinued the correspondence. And a lot of theorists think that this might have been the government trying to cover up or trying to get him to stop talking about it.
Yeah, probably. That's what it sounds like.
Because those are two completely different names altogether, Carl and Or never mind, I guess Carl, never mind, they're the same, Carl and Carlos, pretty much.
Kind of, yeah.
But one sounds like they're Hispanic, the other one sounds like it's like a white guy.
Hey, it's Carlos.
I think it's Carlos.
What's it?
What's that?
I just said, hey, it's Carlos.
I wrote, a reunion of Navy veterans who had served aboard the U.S.S. Eldridge told a Philadelphia newspaper in April of 1999 that their ship had never made port in Philadelphia, is what they were all saying. And the Office of Naval Research, or the ONR, stated in 1996 the ONR had never conducted investigations of radar invisibility either in 1943 or ever, is what they claim.
Well, but then again, the government can cover it. We're talking about they can cover things up if they want to.
Yeah.
But if we're experimenting nowadays with how to make airplanes invisible to radar, why wouldn't they try the same thing for vehicles and ships? That's the thing that kind of puzzles me.
What do you mean?
Like, I was just thinking, if the Navy claims that they never investigated invisibility on the ships, I find it kind of weird that they would test it out on airplanes, but they wouldn't test it out on ships or vehicles.
I still don't understand what, like, you mean like back in the day or what we do now, like with the jets and airplanes we have now?
Oh, no, I mean just in general, because the Navy claims that they've never ever experimented with that, and I find that hard to believe.
What, with like hidden like to be hidden on radar type of stuff.
Yeah, because they claim that the Navy's never, ever even tried to experiment with that, and that they've never even thought of that idea. I find that stupid, just because every other branch of the military tries it. Why wouldn't they?
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure they have. They just probably have some special.
What do you think, Tim? I don't know if he's listening, but anyway.
Hold on, my phone's messing up. What's going on, dear?
I said the Navy claims they've never even tried to experiment with invisibility. Don't you think that's a crock of crap?
Yeah, because I told you that's what I was saying. The government can cover things up if they want. And of course they could say they never did, because you know they had to have along one point or another.
Well, here's something interesting that you guys would think was cool. It's like 3 paragraphs. I wrote, according to a 2002 book by writers James Mosley and Carl Flock in 1957, Jessup was contacted by the Office of Naval Research in Washington, D.C. He was asked to study the contents of a package that it had received. Upon his arrival, Jessup was surprised to learn that the paperback copy of his UFO book had been mailed to the ONR, and the envelope was marked Happy Easter. The book had been extensively annotated in its margins. Mosley and Flock claimed that the annotations were written with 3 different shades of pink ink. They appeared to detail a correspondence among 3 individuals. And since only one of them had their name in there, and they wrote J-E-M-I. And the other ones were called Mr. A and Mr. B, they wrote. Anyways, he said to discuss that there were 2 types of people living in outer space, and was talking about aliens, it says. And the lengthy discussions were talking about various elements and things that he had mentioned in his book, saying if they were true or false. And he says, when the ONR contacted Jessup, claiming that the return address on that guy's letter, I think I told you, you have a guy named Carl. Carl tried to write back, posing as that other guy.
Uh-huh.
It says that the ONR claimed that the return address that the address he was writing was an abandoned farmhouse. So
Weird.
They're saying, where did that letter come from, and who was writing him, and how did they receive his letter is what they're kind of getting at there.
Yeah.
And it says 100 copies of his book were printed to the military and to the Navy, and it says he was found dead a month later in 1959, and it was ruled a suicide. It just so happened after he finds this book with the annotations in it that it was ruled a suicide, you know? Kind of weird.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we have a caller on the line. And caller, you're on the line. Caller. I don't know if they didn't say anything, but I'll try again in a minute.
It's the government. We know too much.
Well, I wrote, the Philadelphia experiment was also known as Project Rainbow. I wrote, Project Rainbow was the name given by the CIA to a research project aimed at reducing the radar cross-section of the Lockheed U-2 to reduce the chance that it would be detected and tracked by Soviet radars during its flight over the U.S.S. So this right here is saying that Project Rainbow, as it was nicknamed, was used by the Air Force. So you got to tell me that it was used by the Air Force and not the Navy, both, even though the Navy was the one that was the allegation of saying that the Navy originated the theory?
Yeah.
And it's also known as Project Gusto, and it says a large number of people became aware of Project Rainbow. So to reduce the spread of information and allow about the follow-on, the work was moved to a new project called Project Gusto. Only those with the need to know were told about it. And it says the end result of Project Gusto was the A-12 Oxcart airplane. Oh. And that Project Gusto has something to do with the UFO crash that we're working on too, which is interesting. Like that one installation that me and Tim were telling you about, Brent, over by northern Nevada. That it said Project Gusto was performed there too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So interesting. Well, I'm going to go on to a thing called Project Montauk, which is part 2 of the Philadelphia experiment that we previously have not had this on a show, so this is a BFP exclusive, as told by Brent. But Project Montauk was alleged to be a series of secret United States government projects conducted at Camp Hero or Montauk Air Force Station in Montauk, Long Island. And it says, the purpose was developing psychological warfare techniques and exotic research, including time travel. And so some of the researchers describe allegations of the Montauk Project as an outgrowth of stories about the Philadelphia experiment. So I guess the research took a turn from invisibility to time travel, or invisibility to brainwashing. You think it's because of the results of the ships disappearing is why they wanted to do this?
So what is the Montauk Project? Like just the gist of it.
So what is it? It's what it is they're experimenting with the radar dishes again to try to see if they could use it as a psychological weapon against their enemies to turn them crazy.
Oh.
And they were also using it as time travel since the ship disappeared and came back. They're trying to see if they could somehow use like a time machine, or like I guess almost like Star Trek style, like jump into another area of the planet.
Huh. well, I'm not sure. I mean,
you go ahead, Prince. Sorry.
Oh, is it still? Are they still like? Okay, what I'm trying to say is during this time, they were trying to do this, or they're trying to cover it up, or what?
Oh no, well I didn't get there yet. This is I didn't get to that part yet, but right now what I was saying was I'm just talking about they were experimenting with it. That's what the people were claiming. Oh, okay. But I was saying, do you think maybe because they seen that the ship disappeared in the harbor in Philadelphia is why they were trying to, that's where they got the idea about time travel?
Yeah, probably. I mean, if it did show up in a different place at a different time and then come back, I mean, that is kind of strange. I'm pretty sure if we had some kind of project going, we saw something that we didn't expect to happen, and then I'm pretty sure they would want to tinker with that, try to perfect it.
Well, a question that's being asked right now is, do you think that they could even be trying that nowadays, or maybe they have it to where they know how to use that nowadays?
I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, the government has a whole bunch of special projects going on. I mean, I don't know about them, but I'm sure they have a lot of stuff they're playing with, trying to get to work. I don't know for what reason, but I mean, if they do know how to time travel, why would they tell us? I mean, that would just be like a security risk, pretty much, like putting us in the U.S. in danger, I guess you could say.
Well, something worth mentioning is there's some, I don't know if I call them interesting stories, the way I word it. You knew this was coming, Brent. There's some people who claim that when the ship disappeared in the Philadelphia experiment or Montauk Project, they claim that they were reincarnated in a 20-year-old boy's body. That's kind of a little funny and worth mentioning.
So all the people got reincarnated into one person? Oh, so 3 people into one kid's body.
Yeah.
That's kind of strange.
But,
to be very. Oh, go ahead.
I was saying that guy does lectures too.
Oh yeah.
You think it's most likely just someone our age that wants to tell a good story?
Yeah, probably.
Would you do that though if you were making good money doing it?
Yeah, but I wouldn't be proud of it. I mean, it's kind of shady if you think about it.
Yeah. Imagine Nick doing that.
But then what if you come up with these false allegations that happen, and then it really did happen, and then the government comes after you and shuts your mouth for you, you know?
Yeah. Well, continuing on, I wrote, conspiracy theorists about the Montauk Project have circulated since the early 1980s. According to astrophysicist and UFO researcher Jacques Vallée, the Montauk experiment stories seem to have originated with the accounts of Preston Nichols, who claimed to have been recovered and repressed memories of his own involvement under hypnosis. And I wrote, it makes sense because alien abduction victims, or I think you call them victims or witnesses, they have the same thing happen where they have to have their repressed memories.
Yeah.
And Tim, what do you think of that? I don't think he's listening.
My phone's messing up off and on. I'm listening, but...
What? It sounds like you're really quiet.
No, I said I'm listening, but my phone is messing up.
I said, what do you think of the repressed memories, or the 20-year-old boy who thinks that he was in the project? Like, what do you think?
Oh, yeah, complete BS.
His exact words said they switched his soul with the soul of a child to save himself as a duty to the military, I guess, is what his exact words say on this website.
Yeah, it's a little hard to do.
But, anyways, I wrote, here's where it gets kind of fishy. This part, I think, might be a hoax. It's most likely a hoax, but it could be real. I wrote, the most common accounts describe the Montauk Project as an extension or continuation of the Philadelphia experiment. Now, according to proponents, the Philadelphia experiment supposedly aimed to render the U.S.S. Eldridge invisible to radar. Now, surviving researchers from the Philadelphia experiment met in 1952 and 53 and said they met with continuing their earlier work on manipulating the... sorry, this is a different part. So I wrote... the scientists wanted to use electromagnetic shielding or of magnetic field manipulation, it says, for psychological warfare. I think I already mentioned that earlier. They wanted to try to use these big generators and see if they can make some sort of a weapon out of it.
Yeah.
That wasn't the part that I thought was a hoax. The next part's the part that I meant. I wrote, common versions of the tale have the researchers' initial proposals rebuffed by the United States Congress due to fears over the potential dangers of the research. Instead, the researchers bypassed Congress and received support from the Department of Defense after proposing the development of a weapon that could instantly trigger psychotic symptoms. The conspiracy theory relates that the funding came from a large cache of Nazi gold found in a train by U.S. soldiers near the Swiss border in France. Proponents allege that the train was destroyed and all of the soldiers involved were killed as part of a cover-up. So, I wrote, I don't know if that part specifically is legit, according to me at least. Because... Oh, you go ahead, Brett.
Oh, I was gonna say, where'd Nick go?
He hung up because he got on the train and he lost reception.
Ah.
But what I was saying was, so the government killed all of the Nazi soldiers and all of the Americans involved to cover up the fact that they got Nazi gold. That doesn't really make any sense to me, really.
Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of weird.
Because what they did with the gold is top secret, but the gold itself is not top secret, you know?
Yeah.
And it says that they proposed to Congress to fund the Montauk Project. Well, you would think, wouldn't there be some sort of a record or something of them putting in a proposal, whether it's top secret or... Because they don't have to say what's in the proposal, because there would be evidence of that they put a proposal, you would think. Unless it's classified, I guess.
Yeah.
I thought the whole, what do you think, Tim, of the Nazi gold theory? Tim. Anyways, I wrote, after the funding was in place, work allegedly began at Brookhaven National Laboratory in Long Island, New York, under the name the Phoenix Project. But the project soon required a large and advanced radar dish. The United States Air Force had a decommissioned base at Montauk, New York, not far from the B&O, which had a complete SAGE radar installation. Water access supposedly allowed equipment to be moved in and out undetected. The key to the Montauk Project allegations, the SAGE radar worked on a frequency of 400 megahertz to 425 megahertz, providing access to the range of 410 to 420, said by theory proponents to influence the human mind. So what I found was kind of odd was, why would they find a generator that was good enough for their research? You would think they'd want one that would surpass what the minimum requirements, right?
Yeah. I mean, what was the frequency?
410 to 420 is what was required, and the one that they got was only 425 megahertz.
So they only need 410 to 420 then?
They need 420, but the radar that they found was 425.
I don't know. That's kind of strange. I don't know why they would do that.
Unless that was like one of the best ones in the area or at that time period, I don't know why they would get a good enough piece of equipment, you know?
Yeah.
Just with the history of the military, you would think they wouldn't get something that was just good enough.
Yeah.
Especially for a project of that magnitude, you would think that they would put a little bit more thought into that.
Yeah.
The other thing, is this type of warfare even humane or legal, you know?
I'm not sure. I'm sure it crosses a lot of lines.
But I don't really think anything really exists of the outcome of the the Montauk Project, at least on that note. I couldn't find anything, at least. Tim might know.
The Montauk, I don't know too much about it, but I know a lot about the Philadelphia experiment, though.
Well, what me and Brett were saying was they got I don't know if you were on the line, but they got a radar on the Montauk Project that was 425 megahertz, and it said that they only needed one that was 420 megahertz, right?
Yeah.
It's like you're going to take a gamble with a multi-million-dollar project over 5 megahertz. I find it kind of hard to believe personally.
No, I know. Me too.
I don't know. To me, I think that the Philadelphia experiment is more plausible than the Montauk Project as far as that goes. Or maybe the Montauk Project has more information that's not declassified. Or what do you think, Brent?
I'm not really sure what to think about that.
Because it sounds like the theories proposed and all that could be real, but it says that there's less documentation for the Montauk Project. But what is interesting, though, is they said that a lot of sailors were saying that the Montauk Project was a subsection of the Philadelphia experiment, what some people were saying.
Well, you said, because when the government does an experiment, they got to follow up on it, so.
Hey, Tim, is there any way that you could talk to Brent for about 10 seconds? I got to send Brent a text message real quick.
All right. And now, like I said, when the government does an experiment, they got to follow up on it somehow. So I guarantee you there's probably a second experiment, which in this case is the Montauk experiment, or Project Montauk. So I'm pretty sure they had to get some more results or something.
Yeah.
They just probably made it better. They probably just did a better job of cleaning it up afterwards and trying to hide it.
Yeah. Same with the name. They probably just switched the name over so that everyone thinks, if anyone were to find out, they would think it was a different project.
Yeah, they named Project Happy.
Well,
that's not suspicious at all.
The Philadelphia experiment, they said that they were talking about Project Rainbow and Project Oxcart. What's weird about that is the UFO crash case that we're working on, I found evidence of Project Oxcart, which I think puts a little bit more plausibility into the Philadelphia experiment. Because you figure, the Montauk Project, to me, it sounds like it's like they were saying it's either a Philadelphia experiment, something to do with the Philadelphia experiment, because it sounds kind of like a lot of it sounds like it might be made up. But we have 22 minutes left in the show. Do you think we should do our show, the stuff that we had planned for tomorrow right now, Tim?
Yeah.
You think I should?
If you want.
All right, well, we are going to go on a quick commercial break, and when we come back, the last 20 minutes of the show, we're going to do a Christmas special, in a sense. And you're listening to BFP Radio.
Up from the depths, 30 stories high, breathing fire, his head in the sky. Godzilla, and Godzilla.
Hello, I'm Mr. Ed. A horse is a horse, of course, and no one can talk to a horse, of course. That is, of course, unless the horse is the famous Mr. Ed. Go right to the source and ask the horse. He'll give you the answer that you endorse. He's always on a steady course. Talk to Mr. Ed. People yakety-yak and streak and waste your time a day. But Mr. Ed will never speak unless he has something to say. A horse is a horse, of course, and this one will talk to his voice is hoarse. You never heard of a talking horse? Well, listen to this.
I am Mr. Ed.
Commercial break. Tomorrow's show, we're going to talk about Santa Claus sightings. So that'll be something interesting to talk about. I was going to do it right now, but I guess we have only 20 minutes. I don't know if that's enough time. But tomorrow's show is going to be at 2 o'clock in the afternoon Pacific time. We might do it probably, I don't know, maybe a little bit earlier so Brent can go on with us. But in general, Brent, as a final thought, what do you think about the Philadelphia experiment in Montauk before we end the show?
I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. There's just a lot of gray areas around the whole project and everything. A lot of loose ends. So it's kind of hard to make a just decision on it. But it's just there's a lot of I don't know. I think that the government is like, you know, still doing it and whatnot and doing their own thing, as, you know, they don't have to share their information, blah blah blah. I just think that you know, it was strange. I mean, why would you let it happen like that?
Definitely. Well, my opinion, I was thinking the Philadelphia experiment, I think, happened, but Project Montauk, I'm kind of unsure because of the whole origins of where the funding came from and stuff. Sounds like it might be made up.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'll throw the final thought to Tim.
Hey, you want to say the final thought for me?
Yeah, like the final thought for today.
Well, again, I agree with you. Like you were saying, the Montauk Project sounds kind of iffy. I mean, I'm not denying it may have happened, but like there's just no real information to speculate about it. But I do definitely believe the Philadelphia experiment happened because, I don't know, there's just a lot of, like, why would someone make something up like that to that extent? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And why would the government could do so much to try to, like, cover it up and be like, oh, no, it didn't happen? Because I guarantee you they had to experiment with that eventually, and I'm pretty sure 1943 would have been the time, especially if it was during the war and they wanted to try to render stuff invisible. So that would have been invaluable to the Allies. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what my final thought is. I believe it personally happened, and ironically enough, like I said, this is a subject Brent and I first met in high school about this. We were talking about this in PE class.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to end the show about 15 minutes early. And, again, I'd like to thank our guests that have been listening, and I'd like to thank our people that helped contribute to the show and my co-hosts. And, again, tune in tomorrow for a special holiday edition of the Bigfoots Pad Paranormal Radio. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Yeah.